about the perfectly competitive firm. We're talking about the fluctuations in its demand curve. And now it's time to check your sense of humor. You ready? Take a look at this ugly graph. Here's a perfectly competitive firm. How do we know that? Because the demand curve is perfectly elastic, flat. In fact, there are 5 different demand curves up here for this company, and we want to talk about the implications of each one. Notice we also have the average total cost, average variable cost, and marginal cost curves. The first thing I want to do is for each one of these demand curves, I want to identify point alpha, the profit maximizing or loss minimizing point where marginal revenue equals marginal cost. So, since each of these is a flat demand curve, it's the same as the marginal revenue curve. So, alpha for demand curve number 1 is here. Alpha for demand curve number 2 is here. Alpha for demand curve number 3 is here. Alpha for demand curve number 4 is here. And alpha for demand curve number 5 is here. Okay? What does alpha tell us? It tells us the quantity for the firm to produce in order to either maximize its profits or, if it's in a loss situation, to minimize its losses. So here's the quantity associated with demand curve number 1. That's how many they should produce. This is for demand curve 2, and 3, and 4, and 5. Are you laughing yet? This is a check on your sense of humor. This is really messy. But try and understand it with me, okay? Look at what's going on. What's going on at alpha 1, or demand curve number 1? The price is higher than the average cost. They're making an economic profit. As a result, more firms will come into the industry. The industry supply curve will increase. The price will fall. The company will see its price fall here. What's going on at D curve 2, demand curve 2? They're right here, such that their price equals their average cost. They're breaking even. And in fact, if you have seen it before, this is called, in perfect competition, this is the break-even point. It's the only point at which demand and average total cost will exactly equal each other here in equilibrium. And it's also called the long-run equilibrium. Just for reference, that's point alpha 2, or D2. Look at what happens with D3, though. With D3 at alpha 3, producing quantity 3, how's the company doing? This is important now. Their price is below their average total cost curve, so they're not making a profit. But in the short run, should they continue to operate, stay in business, and sell this many products? And the answer is, in the short run, sure, they can do that because this price, D3, is higher than the average variable cost of operating there. They're making enough revenue to pay their variable costs and a little bit more, which would help pay their fixed costs. Look at alpha 4, D4. What's going on here? They're tangent to the average variable cost curve. They are just, at this level, just making enough money. Their price just equals ABC, making just enough money to pay their variable costs. So yeah, they can operate. Now, when might you do that as a business? If you're a bar in a college town, typically in July and August, most of the students are out of town and business is slow. But you may want to remain open just so you're making a little bit of money above your variable costs, or equal to, but above your variable costs to help pay for your rent. Even though you're losing money in the summer, you may remain open, because what happens when the students come back in the fall? Then you start making plenty of money. And in fact, for many businesses, they may operate at a loss through most of the year. And then maybe over the Christmas season, they'll make 90% of their revenues in 3 months. So there are times when you operate at a loss, and it's a good, rational decision, as long as you're making enough money to cover your variable costs. And this is true of D3 and D4. Now look at D5. What's happening here? You're down here at alpha 5, where your price is even below your variable cost. What do you need to do? You need to shut the doors and go fishing. You need to close down. In fact, this point here at alpha 4, we typically call the shutdown point. If I can spell it. Shutdown. Shutdown. Let's try it again. The shutdown point, because if the price goes anywhere below price level 4 or demand curve 4, if the price goes anywhere below that, close the doors. Because you're not even making enough money to cover your variable costs. And if you close the door, at least you don't have variable costs. Okay? So you want to be familiar with these 2 points in particular, break even and shutdown. You want to be familiar with the fact that in the short run, if the price falls below average total cost but is either equal to or above variable cost, you can operate in the short run. But if the price falls below break even in the short run, you close down. Be familiar with all of those points. One last issue, by the way. If your demand curve keeps going up like this, your alpha points keep going here, right? So as price rises, you produce more and more and more and more, right? This is the quantity to produce at this price. What is this curve? In fact, right here. It's not just the marginal cost curve or higher. So this is the long run supply curve. And if you took that same consideration with what we've just said, in the short run, you'll even be producing down in here. So we could say this is your short run supply curve, the whole marginal cost curve down to the ABC. So frequently in books you'll see marginal cost equals supply. And that's what they're talking about, that part of the marginal cost curve. All right? That's a lot of stuff. I hope you're laughing about it. This is just a check on your sense of humor. Thanks.